So,
Okay,
all right.
sweet.
Okay,
Thank you.
so you're looking at an ovary, and we're looking at development of oocytes through the monthly cycle, the ovarian cycle. So you have thousands, or a female has thousands of primordial follicles. A follicle is really a single layer of cells. They're called follicular cells that surround an oocyte. And the oocytes are primary oocytes because they are paused in meiosis 1. Each month, a handful, your book quotes 6 to 12, will be stimulated under the influence of FSH to start growing and developing.
Follicle stimulating hormone, everyone.
Yes. So primordial becomes, and the model gets a little vague here, becomes primary, becomes secondary follicles. They're going to get larger. The oocytes, the gametes on the inside, one gamete per follicle, stays the same size. What's growing are the follicular cells. So they're dividing, you're getting layers of them. At a point, for lecture, you know that they become called the granulosa cells. Under FSH, you will know. They become granulosa cells. So you can kind of see here that it's larger, there's layers of those cells, and the granulosa cells convert androgens to estrogens. This is all happening in the follicular phase.
Okay.
One of, let's say, the half dozen or so that are developing from these, going through this process, only one will make it to a mature follicle, called a Graafian follicle. And this is really kind of showing not so much the follicle, but the process of ovulation. So the oocyte and surrounding kind of cells are leaving the ovary, along with some fluid. Cells, the granulosa cells that stay behind, that's kind of what's being represented here. These become functionally a little endocrine gland called the corpus luteum, which secretes hormones, progesterone and estrogen. We're focusing primarily on the progesterone aspect. It leaves here and targets the mucosal lining of the uterus to prepare for pregnancy, really implantation of what you now know would be called a blastocyst. If pregnancy doesn't occur, this structure then degrades, stops producing progesterone, and becomes more or less functionally a scar-like structure called corpus albicans. And these are all corpus albicans. This is just a cross-section of one.
Now, this itself is called...
So, in the primary, secondary follicles, there are oocytes. They're primary oocytes because they're on pause in meiosis 1. When that primary oocyte, though, ovulates, it finishes meiosis 1, starts meiosis 2, making it a secondary oocyte.
Okay.
It will only finish meiosis 2 if it gets fertilized.
And
But it's still a secondary oocyte because it finished meiosis 1.
And what part of that is called the Graafian?
Graafian follicles, the entire follicle with the oocyte inside that's mature. One per normal ovarian cycle.
Right.
If there were two, right, and they both got fertilized, you'd have twins. Fraternal monogamous.
I think Lily's got her hand up over there.
Secondary follicle. And you said this androgen turns into estrogen?
Yeah, so if you want a little bit more detail.
It's a little.
Okay. Basically, these follicular cells, right, they're being stimulated by FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and they become what we call granulosa cells. All right, pause. The other layer of cells, the most external kind of layer around the granulosa cells, this was called the fecal cells or theca folliculi. Okay, they're responding to LH. LH is targeting those, and those thecal cells are secreting androgens, kind of generic sex hormones. The granulosa cells take those androgens and convert them to estrogen.
Okay.
So since you have many of these growing and developing, you have building estrogen during the follicular phase.
So for lab, I'm pretty much just going to need to be able to distinguish one from the other.
Right. And we did spend some time talking about the corpus luteum, how it secretes hormones and targets the uterus. But yeah, everything else is
Well, I thank you very
pretty
much.
anatomical here. Yeah.
Appreciate that.